The darkness swallows everything on Guadalcanal like thick black paint. Salt air mixes with the stench of decomposing jungle plants. Something electric hangs in the atmosphere. Danger crackles through the humid night air. Behind a shattered palm tree, a Japanese officer waits in silence. American shells destroyed this tree days earlier. Sticky sap still leaks from the splintered bark. His fingers know every groove and surface of his rifle. The weapon feels familiar in his hands. This bolt-action rifle weighs exactly 7 pounds. Japanese factories have built these weapons for decades. The metal parts slide together with perfect precision. Click, click. Two sounds that mean death to enemies of the Emperor. 900 soldiers surround him in the pre-dawn blackness. These men belong to an elite regiment. Every fighter carries the same type of rifle. Dull metal gleams faintly in the starlight. These weapons have conquered nations. Veterans filled these jungle positions tonight. These are not fresh recruits stumbling through their first combat. These soldiers crushed Chinese armies at famous bridges. They swept through Asian territories like an unstoppable force. Victory follows them everywhere they go. Each man knows his weapon will not fail him. 5 bullets wait in the magazine. 1 more round sits ready in the chamber. 6 chances to kill before reloading becomes necessary. 6 bullets from an expert marksman means 6 dead Americans. Whispered voices carry through the thick air. The colonel's words reach every position. American Marines have been isolated for weeks. Enemy forces are starving and desperate. Intelligence reports show no reinforcements coming. No ammunition remains in their positions. Dawn will bring complete victory. The plan could not be simpler or more elegant. Charge straight across the sandbar, where a creek meets the ocean. Americans call this waterway by an animal name. A perfect place for enemy resistance to die forever. Their bolt-action weapons cannot match Japanese firepower. American rifles work the same way as Japanese weapons. Load 1 bullet. Fire once. Work the bolt manually. Load another bullet. Repeat the process. Japanese soldiers perform this sequence faster than any army in the world. Something felt wrong during yesterday's reconnaissance mission. Sounds from American positions seemed different than expected. Not the familiar crack of single-shot rifles. Something else entirely. A strange rhythm that made no sense. Popping sounds in patterns that matched no known weapon. Fear serves no purpose for a warrior. The Japanese rifle has proven reliable in every climate. Accurate shots land on targets 500 meters away. Jungle conditions never cause mechanical failures. Dozens of campaigns have tested this weapon thoroughly. What could desperate Americans possibly carry that would matter against Imperial fury? Orders filter down through the darkness. Prepare for the attack. The officer chambers his first round carefully. He cannot know what waits across that water. Cannot imagine the weapon that will destroy everything Japanese soldiers believe about warfare. Cannot foresee the sounds that will haunt his dreams forever. The confidence flowing through Japanese ranks comes from solid experience. Military doctrine built on proven principles has conquered half of Asia. For 40 years, one core belief has guided every tactical decision. Disciplined marksmen always defeat crude volume of fire. An operations officer had briefed the assault force using charts and photographs spread across makeshift tables. American Marines carry the same rifles we have faced everywhere else. 1 shot, then work the bolt. 1 shot, then work the bolt again. Our training equals their rate of fire. Superior spirit and tactics will overwhelm them completely. This was not empty boasting or cultural arrogance. 4 years of continuous victories supported every word. Chinese formations had shattered under accurate Japanese rifle fire at bridge battles. Philippine defenders armed with identical bolt-action technology had fallen to superior marksmanship. American and Filipino soldiers used the same mechanical principles as Japanese weapons. The rifle in every Japanese soldier's hands represented the peak of small arms evolution. Trained warriors could deliver precise fire continuously. Soldiers raised from childhood in the warrior tradition made every shot count. Years of practice created mechanical precision in human form. A sergeant checks his ammunition for the fourth time tonight. 120 rounds rest in metal clips. Each bullet was loaded by skilled workers in Japanese factories. His rifle gleams with the deep finish that speaks of quality materials and expert manufacturing. 7 pounds of steel that has never jammed, never failed, never disappointed a soldier of the Emperor. The young private beside him whispers nervously. American rifle fire yesterday sounded different than Filipino weapons, different patterns than they had heard before. The sergeant hisses for silence, but privately he noticed the same thing. During reconnaissance at a coastal point, when Marine patrols ambushed their scouting party, American weapons made unexpected sounds. Not the measured rhythm of bolt-action fire. Something faster. Something that triggered veteran instincts, trained through years of combat. But intelligence reports were absolutely clear. American Marines carried standard rifles that had not changed since 1903. Bolt-action mechanisms, 5-round magazines, manual cycling required between every shot. Exactly like Japanese weapons in every mechanical aspect. Americans might fight with desperate courage born of hopeless situations. But courage cannot change the laws of engineering and physics. Rifles work the way rifles work. No amount of determination alters mechanical reality. The colonel moves between positions like a ghost. His presence radiates the confidence built through decades of victory. 44 years of life have brought him through Chinese campaigns, through the conquest of Pacific Islands, through every success of his distinguished military career. His whispered words reach company commanders throughout the jungle positions. The enemy faces isolation and demoralization. Supply lines have been cut for weeks. Their rifles require the same manual operations as ours, but they lack our discipline. They lack our training. They lack our warrior spirit completely. The charge across that sandbar will break their will within minutes. Superior marksmanship combined with fighting spirit always prevails. This doctrine has worked flawlessly through 4 years of warfare. Japanese soldiers trained to fire 15 aimed rounds per minute with bolt-action rifles consistently defeat enemies carrying similar weapons. The secret extends beyond the weapon itself. The man behind the rifle makes all the difference. Japanese marksmen work bolt actions with mechanical precision while maintaining accuracy that places bullets exactly where they need to go. Training and discipline create this superiority. Intelligence analysis confirmed their tactical advantage. Captured American rifles had been examined thoroughly by weapons experts. Well-made but unremarkable weapons. Bolt-action rifles with 5-round magazines. No different in principle from weapons Japanese forces had faced and defeated throughout Asian campaigns. Secret weapons would have been discovered by now if they existed. Japanese intelligence networks span the Pacific. Surely any significant American innovation would have been detected and analyzed. But strange reports continue filtering back from listening posts. American voices carry differently across the water tonight. More relaxed than expected. Less desperate than intelligence predicted. And those weapon sounds during daylight hours. bursts of fire in patterns that do not match bolt-action timing. The Japanese officer tries to suppress growing uneasiness. His rifle represents superb engineering and manufacturing, accurate enough to drop enemies at 400 meters with single shots. The cartridge hits harder than most rifles in the world. Japanese doctrine emphasizes aimed fire over wasteful spray tactics. One shot equals one kill. The way of the warrior. Final preparations begin as darkness starts to fade. Bayonets attached to rifle muzzles with soft metallic clicks. Ammunition gets redistributed according to tactical needs. Each man carries exactly what the brief assault will require. The assault that will drive Marines into the sea forever. All rifles are loaded and ready. Bolts closed on chambered rounds. 10 minutes until advance begins. Whispered commands pass from position to position. Remember, disciplined fire. Aimed shots only. Make every bullet count. The Emperor watches everything. As soldiers prepare to move forward, the sergeant cannot forget yesterday's strange sounds from American positions. But surely nerves explain everything. His rifle has never failed him once. Japanese marksmanship has never been matched by any Western army in history. The assault force begins its final approach through the jungle toward the creek. 917 soldiers carry the finest bolt-action rifles in the world. Confidence fills every heart based on tactics that brought victory after victory. They have no knowledge of what waits ahead, no understanding of the weapon that will make their rifles seem as obsolete as ancient swords. A weapon that fires 8 rounds as fast as triggers can be pulled. No bolt operation required. Ever. Less than 1 hour from now, the sound of semi-automatic fire will destroy Japanese military confidence forever. At exactly the predetermined moment, the colonel raises his sword high. The blade catches final starlight before clouds swallow the sky completely. 917 Japanese soldiers surge forward toward what they believe will be another effortless victory. The company commander leads his men across the sandbar. Boots splash through ankle-deep water as the tide retreats steadily. Around him, the distinctive sound of Japanese bolts cycling fills the humid air. Click, 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 click. Soldiers chamber rounds and advance in perfect formation. This is how Japanese infantry fights. Disciplined, precise, unstoppable. First Marine positions materialize through mist, like ghosts appearing from nightmares. The officer raises his rifle, finds a muzzle flash through his sights, and squeezes the trigger smoothly. The weapon barks sharply. He immediately works the bolt. Click, click. The spent cartridge ejects automatically. A fresh round chambers instantly. 1 second to aim properly. 1 second to fire accurately. 2 seconds to cycle the bolt and find another target. This rhythm of bolt-action warfare has been perfected through decades of intensive training. Every Japanese soldier knows this timing by heart. Then something impossible happens that makes no sense whatsoever. From Marine positions comes a sound that defies explanation. Rapid pop, 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 pop that cuts through the night like machine gun fire. But this is not machine gun fire at all. Too controlled for automatic weapons. Too precise for area fire. Too personal for crew-served weapons. What creates that sound? The officer shouts to his sergeant. But the sergeant stares in horrified fascination at muzzle flashes across the creek. Where single shots should appear, followed by pauses for bolt operation, continuous fire erupts instead. Not wild spray of automatic weapons. Aimed deliberate shots coming faster than any bolt-action rifle should be capable of firing. Not random or desperate, controlled and methodical. but impossibly fast. The private charging beside him suddenly spins and drops. Then another private falls. Then a corporal crumples. Not one at a time, the way men fall to single-aimed shots, in rapid succession, as if Americans somehow fire multiple shots in the time required for one Japanese bolt cycle. The officer works his bolt frantically. Click, click. Chamber another round. Aim carefully. Fire precisely. But in the time required to complete this cycle, 8 distinct shots ring out from a single American position directly ahead. 8 separate shots in the time needed to fire once. Impossible. He screams into the chaos, but evidence surrounds him completely. Japanese soldiers fall faster than they can be replaced. Not because Americans shoot more accurately, because they fire impossibly fast. Each American seems to possess the firepower of 3 or 4 Japanese soldiers. The sergeant drops to one knee, works his bolt with mechanical precision, drilled since basic training. Click, click, aim, fire, click, click, aim, fire. But the American directly across from him maintains steady fire that never pauses, never slows, never stops for bolt operation. They are not using bolt-action rifles. Someone shouts over growing chaos. Those are not the standard weapons at all. Realization hits like a physical blow to the chest. Americans are not fighting with bolt-action rifles whatsoever. They carry some kind of semi-automatic weapon. A rifle that fires as fast as triggers can be pulled without ever requiring bolt operation. But that cannot be possible. Intelligence was completely clear. Americans carried standard rifles unchanged since 1903. The same bolt-action technology Japan had been facing and defeating for 4 years straight. How could they develop and field semi-automatic rifles without Japanese intelligence discovering anything? The answer comes in a distinctive metallic ping that cuts through battle noise. The sound of an empty clip ejecting from an American rifle. But before this sound can be processed fully, rapid fire resumes immediately. The American soldier slams in a fresh clip and continues shooting without pause. 8 rounds. Americans carry rifles that hold 8 rounds and fire them as fast as triggers can be squeezed. No bolt operation required between shots. No manual cycling. No pause for reloading individual cartridges. Around him, the assault disintegrates completely. Japanese soldiers trained for 40 years in bolt-action supremacy are being destroyed by Americans who fire 3 times faster. The tactical advantage that carried the Imperial Army to victory after victory across Asia shatters against American semi-automatic firepower. Fall back. The officer screams desperately, but nowhere exists to fall back toward. The colonel, convinced this would be quick victory against demoralized Marines, committed his entire force to frontal assault across open ground. That ground has become a killing field swept by semi-automatic fire that makes Japanese bolt-action rifles seem like antique museum pieces. A private, somehow still alive despite a bullet through his shoulder, staggers toward his commander. "Captain, what are those weapons? They fire like machine guns but aim like rifles." Before any answer can be given, American counterattack begins. Marine reinforcements surge forward. Now the weapons destroying the regiment become visible. They look like rifles, shoulder-fired, aimed weapons, but pouring out sustained fire without any pause for bolt operation. One American Marine, barely 20 years old, works through the Japanese company with methodical precision. 8 shots, metallic ping, reload quickly. 8 more shots, metallic ping, reload again. In the time required to fire twice with bolt action, this single American fires 16 aimed rounds. Mathematical reality becomes devastating. If each American fires 8 rounds for every 3 Japanese rounds, then 2,000 Marines with semi-automatic rifles possess the firepower of 5,000 Japanese soldiers with bolt actions. The Marine Division is not undermanned at all, actually outgunning the entire Japanese assault force. "This is what defeat sounds like," the sergeant whispers as he lies bleeding in sand, listening to rapid pop, pop, pop of American semi-automatic fire cutting down the last attackers. "This is the sound of our rifles becoming obsolete overnight." By dawn, as Marine tanks roll across the sandbar crushing everything in their path, tactical revolution is complete. Of 917 Japanese soldiers who charged across that sandbar with supreme confidence in bolt-action rifles, only 15 will survive to tell this story. The company commander, crawling through surf with a bullet in his leg, looks back at the carnage, understanding with crystal clarity what just happened here. Americans have not just won a battle. They have made the Japanese rifle, pride of small arms manufacturing, tactically obsolete overnight. The semi-automatic rifle Americans call the M1 Garand has just changed fundamental mathematics of infantry combat. Japan, with factories full of bolt-action rifles and doctrine built around single-shot precision, is suddenly fighting World War II with World War I weapons. As sun rises over Guadalcanal, painting the beach red with regimental blood, one terrible truth becomes clear. Every Japanese soldier in the Pacific now carries a rifle that fires 3 times slower than his American counterpart. Strategic implications stagger the imagination. If Americans can mass-produce semi-automatic rifles while Japan remains locked into bolt-action technology, every future battle will see Japanese forces outgunned by 3-to-1 firepower ratios. The weapon supposed to be Japan's backbone, the precision rifle, has become its greatest weakness. 15 survivors who stagger back to base carry more than wounds. They carry revelation that will shake Japanese military to its core. The company commander, his leg bandaged with torn uniform fabric, sits in the aid station trying to explain impossible events to commanding officers. They fire 8 rounds without working bolts. He repeats for the 3rd time, knowing how insane this sounds. 8 rounds, then metallic ping, then 8 more rounds immediately. No pause whatsoever. No bolt operation required. Rifle fires as fast as triggers can be pulled. Intelligence officers exchange meaningful glances. Semi-automatic rifles are theoretical weapons, experimental designs existing in laboratories and testing facilities only. The idea that Americans have not only perfected such weapons, but mass-produced and fielded them to every infantry soldier seems completely impossible. But evidence cannot be denied or explained away. Radio intercepts from American positions reveal they call their weapon the M1 Garand, named after its Canadian-American designer, John Garand. As Japanese intelligence pieces together shocking truth, they realize Americans have achieved something Japanese military considered pure fantasy. A semi-automatic rifle reliable enough for front-line infantry use. Implications cascade through Japanese strategic planning like falling dominoes. If every American soldier fires 3 times faster than every Japanese soldier, then numerical superiority in the Pacific means nothing. Army units arriving at Guadalcanal in October will demonstrate this reality when soldiers armed with Garands integrate seamlessly with Marine forces and multiply American firepower exponentially. A lieutenant colonel serving with arriving Army units will later write that this rifle was probably the very best weapon of the war. The best military hand weapon ever placed on any battlefield. As Army units with Garands fight alongside Marines still carrying bolt-action rifles, the difference becomes stark and obvious. Marines observe firsthand the enormous increase in firepower that Army forces enjoy with their Garand rifles. Volume of fire increases dramatically. Suppression of enemy positions becomes routine. Tactical flexibility expands beyond previous limitations. By December, desperate Japanese engineers at Naval Arsenal begin frantic process of reverse engineering captured Garand rifles. Working around the clock, they modify American rifles to fire Japanese ammunition. Discovering that semi-automatic action can indeed function with their cartridges. But copying the complex gas-operated system proves infinitely more challenging than Japanese metallurgy and manufacturing can quickly master. The result becomes the Type 4 rifle, Japan's desperate attempt to match American firepower, but by the time prototype rifles reach limited production in late 1944, far too late to matter. American factories have produced over 5 million Garand rifles, while Japanese industry manages to complete fewer than 100 Type 4 rifles before surrender in August 1945. Industrial capacity determines military outcome as much as tactical innovation. Psychological impact on Japanese forces proves as devastating as tactical disadvantage. Soldiers who carried their rifles with pride now understand they carry weapons that make them sitting ducks. Every firefight becomes a race against time. Japanese soldiers working bolts frantically, while Americans pour out rapid fire that leaves no opportunity for aimed response. A Marine gunnery sergeant wielding machine guns at Henderson Field will earn the Medal of Honor, partly because Garand-equipped infantry can provide sustained supporting fire his crew-served weapons require. Integration of semi-automatic rifles into American infantry tactics creates combined arms effects that Japanese bolt-action doctrine simply cannot match. Technological revolution spreads beyond individual weapons to reshape entire military doctrines. American squads armed with Garands can suppress enemy positions while maneuvering, something impossible with bolt-action rifles that require soldiers to stop, aim, fire, and cycle bolts manually. Japanese forces trained in tactics built around bolt-action limitations find themselves tactically obsolete overnight. A famous American general will call the M1 Garand the greatest battle implement ever devised. But for Japanese survivors, it represents something else entirely. The moment their military supremacy died on a sandbar in the Solomon Islands. The instant their tactical doctrine became museum curiosity. Today, military analysts recognize Guadalcanal as the moment technological advantage shifted decisively to Allied forces. The Garand did not just win battles. It demonstrated how rapidly military technology can evolve to make entire armies obsolete overnight. In our modern era of hypersonic missiles, artificial intelligence, and drone warfare, the lesson remains urgent and relevant. Military forces that fail to innovate do not just lose advantages. They lose wars completely. They lose the future itself. The sound that haunted the Japanese officers' nightmares, that rapid pop, 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 pop of semi-automatic fire, was the sound of the future arriving on the battlefield. Sound of American industrial innovation turning the tide of World War II, one trigger pull at a time. What military technology today might be creating similar nightmares for our adversaries? The Garand's legacy reminds us that in warfare, technological surprise does not just change battles. It changes history forever. The weapon that seemed impossible in 1942 became the standard by which all other rifles were measured. Semi-automatic fire transformed from theoretical concept to battlefield reality in the space of a single night. One engagement on a Pacific island changed the mathematics of infantry combat forever. Those 15 survivors carried back more than wounds and trauma. They carried knowledge that Japanese military superiority was an illusion built on outdated assumptions. That American industrial capacity had produced weapons Japanese engineers could barely imagine. The clicking sound of bolt-action rifles, once the sound of Japanese dominance, became the sound of obsolescence. The rapid fire that seemed impossible became the new standard of infantry warfare. Technology had leaped forward while tactical thinking remained frozen in the past. Today's military planners study Guadalcanal not just as a turning point in Pacific warfare, but as a lesson in technological disruption. How quickly advantages can disappear, how rapidly entire doctrines can become worthless, how innovation determines victory more than courage or tradition. The M1 Garand represents more than superior firepower. It represents the moment American manufacturing and engineering capabilities demonstrated their true potential. When theoretical designs became practical weapons. When laboratory experiments became battlefield reality. For Japanese forces across the Pacific, that distinctive ping of empty Garand clips became the sound of doom. The sound that meant American soldiers were reloading to fire 8 more rounds faster than any bolt action could respond. The sound of technological superiority in action. The lesson echoes through military history. Technological advantage belongs to those who innovate fastest, who adapt quickest, who recognize that yesterday's superiority becomes tomorrow's weakness unless constantly renewed through research and development. Semi-automatic fire changed everything in 1942. What innovation will change everything tomorrow? The Garand's legacy lives on in every military laboratory working to create the next technological breakthrough that will reshape warfare itself.